Okay, we can get started. So, Anu, would you give the invocation?
ॐ सहना भवतु सहनौ भुनक्तु सह वीर्यं करवावहै तेजस्विनावधीतमस्तु मा विद्विषावहै ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः हरिः ॐ श्रीगुरुभ्यो नमः Harihi Om.
Thank you, Anu, and welcome back to the study or the discussion of this wonderful chapter. I got a question. Probably I will address that at the end of the session. We were covering the verses 4 and 5. In fact, we took one day for verse 4 and verse 5. I did that because these verses puzzled me a lot when I was studying the Gita. And as I said, like till I come to know about this orders of reality and also the transcendent and imminent definition, this was a mystery. So hopefully we all had a clarity of those verses. Probably we can chant that one more time. Just quickly see in 2 minutes what exactly they are. And then we can move on to the next set of verses, 3 verses. Now we can come back to our pace and schedule of covering 3 verses. In fact, there is one more verse in between, which talks about bhakti. So that verse probably also we just need to spend some time. So I know, if you don't mind, could you please chant verse 4 and 5?
Maya tatamidam sarvam jagadavyaktamurtina matsthani sarvabhutani nachaham teshvavasthitah nachamatthani bhutani pashyame yogamaishwaram bhutabhrinna cha bhutasthah Mamatma bhuta bhavanaha.
Excellent. I could close my eyes and say that there is nothing better in the scriptural literature or any literature to that matter, which helps you to understand God. So that's the beauty of these verses. In fact, this verses challenges our intellect to understand God. It helps us to go beyond. It helps us to go beyond our childish understanding of the God. So I talked about this a lot, but I just wanted to bring your attention to this point once again. A child has his or her view on the world, and that world view is childish, and it is okay for a child to have that childish view. But when you become mature, you expect your view also to be changed. For example, if your worldview is different, or if it is same as that of a child at this point of time, the way you interact with the world, the way you live your life, it is going to be totally childish. So it's a miracle that why the view of the God is not changing. So this chapter and chapter 7 are probably the best source. I'm not saying that this is the only source. Definitely every scripture, including Bible and Quran, every scripture expounds God, and one scripture is not definitely greater than the other. every scripture covers, means talks about God. I'm only saying that here you get a comprehensive view, a definite view. So Krishna clearly explains there is a transcendental nature of the reality which is beyond our direct perception. And the reality of Ishvara or the God is that transcendental nature. Just like the reality of the dream is in fact the waker, the dream is happening within the waker, right? The dream objects, the dream time, the dream space are created by the waker. From where the waker got the material cause. He didn't borrow the material from outside. The material cause is himself. The efficient cause is himself. The intelligent cause is himself. And the laws governing this dream world is in fact came from the waker. So from the waker can tell Mastani Sarvabhutani, right? Means the verse tells, I pervert the entire world. Jagata Maya Tadamidam Sarvam. Jagata Avyakta Murtinam. I pervert this entire universe in an unmanifested form. When Krishna tells, I pervert the entire world, it talks about the transcendent, means the immanent world, the relative world we are experiencing. It is completely pervaded by the absolute. Just like the entire dream is pervaded by the dreamer's mind. Then he tells, Maya tatamidam sarvam jagata avyakta murtinam mastani sarvabhutani. Every being, the mountain in the dream, the fire in the dream, the sun and the moon and the stars in the dream is within the dreamer's mind. So everything exists in me. Where? In a relative time and space. So Krishna tells the whole universe exists in me, but in a different order of reality. Then he tells, even though they exist in me, I am not confined to that because I do have an existence outside of this time and space. In the next breath, he said, Nachamastani Bhutani, in absolute sense, there is no dream world in me, right? Right now, the dream I had in me yesterday, it doesn't exist in me. So in one verse, he said, it exists in me. In other words, he tells, it doesn't exist in me. Pashyame yoga maishwaryam. See the glory of my yoga or my creative potential or my glory. I can create the universe within me. I can take that universe back into myself. Right? So this is beautifully explained in these two verses. Right? So Bhuta means even though the Bhutas, I am the creator and sustainer of the Bhuta. We use Bhuta Prit, Bhuta Bhavana. So, but still I am not, means they are not confined to me. I am not dependent upon them. So is it understood with clarity, not just as theoretical statement? If you really think about these two orders of reality, and if you try to relate this with the dream analogy, this is going to be very clear, theoretically at least. And this is what is Jnana Yoga. This is the Jnana Yoga we are going to hear as Jnana Yoga. Any questions, comments? Okay, if everybody is clear, let's move to verse 6. Okay, no. Could you please chant?
यथाकाशस्थितो नित्यं वायुः सर्वत्र गोमहान् तथा सर्वाणि भूतानि मत्स्थानीत्युपधारय यथाकाशस्थितो नित्यं वायुः सर्वत्र गोमहान् तथा सर्वाणि भूतानि मत्स्थानीत्युपधारय.
Another beautiful verse. So we have been using this dream analogy or Swapna Drishtanta for a while. So Krishna gives a different example. He tells Yatha. Yatha means just as. Yatha akashastitu nityam vayu sarvagato mahan. So just like akasha means space, vayu means wind. Even though the wind is vast, the wind is contained within the space. That is the example. I'll explain this a little bit later. The wind, the nature of the wind is not affected, I mean, the space is not affected by the nature of the wind. Just like that, tatha, yatha tatha is an expression in Sanskrit. Tatha sarvani bhutani mastani tyupatharayan. So please know that all the living beings exist in me and I am not affected by that. So this is the verse. So let's try to understand that, right? So I think I always tell this, every example, whether it is Swapna Drishtanta or any example for that matter, has deficiencies and shortcoming. So anybody, just out of intellectual curiosity, can anybody tell me what is the problem? What is the first problem with the Swapna Drishtanta? There are so many defects for the Swapna Drishtanta. What is one? Can you just bring up one defect?
The assumption that it is God's dream.
Yeah, but that is the example itself, right? It means we never assumed that it is God's dream. We said that it is like my dream, the world is created. So never ever we said it is God's dream. That is not even coming into picture. But even you consider it as a dream. Do you have control over your dream?
No. No.
But in the case of the world, it is projected based upon a well-defined rule. I'll give more problems, but I'm not quoting this out because it confuses you. But right now, I think you are in a state. That is why it's an example, right? So if the example is the actuality, it is not an example. So just think, it's a model. Model is always an abstract representation of the truth. Model is never the truth. The example is never the reality. Example is an approximation just to indicate an idea. So that is why we use different examples.
But then if you have control over your dream, then it's not a dream anymore, right?
Correct. That is why it is not that is why we are saying that it is not equating dream has a problem with the projection of the universe, how the universe got manifested. We use this dream to explain how the God projected the universe. So I was just explaining the problem of using the dream example. If you think that it is God's dream is the world, it is a problem. That's not the case.
Right.
I think you all are saying the same thing. Excellent. So that's why there is a different example. He tells the space and the air. All of you studied the elementary physics or the what science is that? How much percentage of the space is covered by air? First of all, how far the air is pervaded in the whole universe?
Only to a certain level.
Entire universe is pervaded.
No, that's
two kilometers, 1.5
2 kilometers or maximum some 10 kilometers, right? That's it.
Okay.
Yeah. So beyond that, the universe exists?
Yes.
Here it does.
Exactly. But when you look at from the earth point of view, it appears air is everywhere. In my normal day-to-day experience, if I go to India, air is there. If I go to another place, anywhere I go, it appears that this is the entire world is air is there. But the fact is, even though the air, even though it appears to be big, air is only a thin layer in the overall scheme of things. Right? And the different climate, different aspects of the universe affects air. The air can become, means smell of the air. One place it is good, one place it is bad. And another characteristics of air is what? Like, means when it is too hot, the air can get hotter. It is subjected to atmospheric pressure. It can move from one place to the other. But even though the air is subjected to a lot of changes, lot of movement, everything, but the space is unaffected by that. And tharyate, that is the word used. The space carries or sustains the air. Can you think about a place where the air is there, but the space is not there? So like that, Krishna tells, the entire world, entire universe is sustained by me. It contained in me. That's another example. First of all, 5,000 years back, how can you think people know the difference between air and space? Clearly differentiating what is air versus what is space. To appreciate this, you should read the alternate literatures at that point of time. Let's stop here. But the air is contained in the space. The nature of the air is subjected to change. It is subjected to movement, but the entire air is pervaded by space. Like that, whatever universe you can see and experience, it is contained in myself. So, multiple interpretation. One is the absolute nature. This relative world is only a portion of that absolute. And how big the relative world appears to me, it is still nothing when you're comparing with that absolute. Think through this. This is amazing, amazing depth you can see of the Lord. Now, this example is created based upon an ancient worldview. What is that ancient worldview? It is definitely better than any of the alternate worldview at that point of time. But if you update this example based upon the modern science right now, you all know that the space itself is growing, correct? Have you read the theory? Expanding universe. So the universe is keep on expanding. I don't want to confuse you with a lot of physics there, but it's a fact that the universe is an expanding universe. Anybody interested? Read the book called Grand Design by Stephen Hawking. Beautiful book. So this,
Rajesh, Maitreyan is another guy who can, I mean, it has to be in Malayalam, but his talks, he talks about it.
is it? Okay.
Yeah. I mean, Vaishagyan and Maitreyan, like these are guys like who really talk about the expanding universe.
Yeah, expanding universe is a beautiful phenomenon. But You have to understand. Whatever, see, how much you can expand. So you buy a small fish or a dog, let's say that, and you put a small cage for the dog. When the dog grows big, what do you have to do? Naturally, you have to change the cage, right?
Get a bigger cage.
Yeah. So if the universe is expanding, the container in which the universe exists, that has to accommodate. No problem. Krishna said, any expansion. So that's what I was saying. Like, if you update this example, I'm not telling to rewrite the Bhagavad Gita or anything like that. Please don't think that way. But I'm saying that if you want to use a modern example, you can use that. Ever expanding universe is always accommodated in Ishvara. That's what it is. Now, what is the defect of this example? Now, since we are into a very deep study, we can try to understand the defects of each example. First of all, understand that every example has a defect. So we just talked about the example, the defect of the Swapna Drishtanta. Thinking it as like a dream, it has its own problem. But this example is also a good example. It clearly shows how things can be accommodated and remain unaffected. But what is the fundamental fault of this example? Anybody? Think through that. What is, can you find one fault with this example?
With air and space.
Yeah, air and space. So what is the problem? This is an example used. There is a relationship between air and space.
So is it the same flaw that the space cannot control the air?
That is one example. But second example, or the most obvious fault of this example is,
Air cannot exist without space.
that is true. In fact, that is a good positive side of this example. But the fault with this example is air is different. Air is different from space. Correct? Air is inherently different from space. Whereas the relative universe, is the dream different from you? Where exactly means the dream, where the material cause of air is different from the material cause of the space. Whereas the material cause of the universe is nothing but Ishvara. Hope I'm not confusing you. These are all the subtlest examples, the subtlest details. Every example has a defect. Here, the world is nothing but God. We talked about this. The world is not Maya Tadamidam Sarvam. I perverts everywhere. Not as a separate entity, but as the very existence of everything. So that is the defect of this example. Okay, that's good enough. So let's continue. Next two verses.
Could you say it again, Rajesh, please? What's the difference between air and
The difference is air the space? What is the relationship between air and space? Was the air created by the space?
No.
Was the air created using the space?
No.
Finally, when the air get destroyed, or when at the end is the air going back to the space? They are two different entities, even though the one is contained in the other. But the relationship between the world and the God is not like that. The world is created from the God. The world exists in God. And finally, the world goes back to the world. So the world goes back to the God. There
Okay.
is no difference.
Okay. Thank you. Yeah. Nice.
So every example has its defects. I'm just telling you. So please don't take the example as literal. The example is, every example has to have a purpose. And what it shows one aspect. We should have the skill to understand what exactly is the point referred by that example. So the dream analogy, Swapna Drishtanta has one purpose, and this has, because the Swapna Drishtanta shows the create means the what is that, material cost, the intelligent cost, the efficient cost is one. It shows that it is a projection. It shows the all-pervaded nature. It shows the transcendent and immanent nature. All that is there. But it has the defect I told you earlier. It is the dream is not, it is not a dream of God. It is not that you don't have control over your dream, but the God has control over exactly what is being projected. And what is being projected, if I had control over all my dream, do you think that I will have some horror dream or bad dreams? Only last couple of, I think last year only, somebody was telling me that whatever she sees is bad dreams. So this is what it is. So let's go to the next verse. Yes, verse 7.
सर्वभूतानि कौन्तेय प्रकृतिं यान्ति मामिकाम् कल्पक्षये पुनस्तानि कल्पादौ विसृजाम्यहम्.
Another brilliant verse, right? So he tells Sarva Bhutani. Sarva Bhutani literally means what? Sarva means what?
All beings.
All. Bhutani means beings. So all beings, anything you can think, animate and inanimate, matter and energy, everything. Kaunteya, son of Kunti, Prakritim yanti mamikam. Prakriti means, loose translation is nature. We will come back to that. Yanti, go, mamikam. It goes to me. When? Kalpakshaye, at the end of a cycle. At the end of a cycle, all being goes back to me. Then what? Then what is going to happen? Punastani, re-established or come forth, get manifested. Visrajamya, kalpado. Kalpado means again in the next cycle, visrajamyaham. From me, it get manifested. So the simple meaning is, all the being in the universe or the entire universe, it comes back to me or goes to my nature at the end of the cycle. And then what is going to happen? At the beginning of the next cycle, it gets projected. Very simple. If you know the Swapna Drishtanta. So before the dream, where was the dream world? It didn't exist, but potentially all those was my mind. Nothing happened. At the beginning of the dream, the whole dream got manifested. So the sun and the moon and the mountains and the trees and the river and people around me was in the dream. But at the end of the dream, what happened? At the end of the dream, where did all these objects went back? Did somebody burn it? Or did somebody means it got destroyed or something like that?
Back to us.
Vanished.
It vanished in me. It came back to my own nature. So originally, It was created from my mind. It existed in my mind for some time. Finally, it got unmanifested into my mind. So that is exactly what Krishna tells, right? Sarva bhutani kaunteya. Every being in this universe, in the imminent world, you have to substitute that. Every being in this imminent world, what happened? Prakritim yanti mamikam. So all of them come back to me, kalpakshay, at the end of this cycle. So at the end of the dream, everything in the dream, millions of objects around me, it goes back to the original nature, which is my mind. So the prakriti, the word prakriti is a technical term. Please don't think that it is nature. The moment you say nature, the image comes to you is this nature. That is not what is being talked here. Prakriti is a technical term borrowed from the philosophical school or the darshana called Sankhya. It means that one loose translation of Prakriti means it is the creative capacity. Here, the creative capacity of the dream is my mind. So like that, the God's creative capacity projected this relative world. And this relative world existed in this God, or the absolute reality. And finally, at the end of this cycle, this universe will go to its potential form, and it is to the God. So that is the first two lines. Sarva bhutani kaunteya prakritim yanti mamikam. And then he tells kalpakshaye punasthani kalpado visrudamyaham. And again at the beginning of the next cycle. So let's say that I had a dream, and after that dream, I got into deep sleep. And in between, I had a second dream. That can be literally or figuratively considered as the next cycle. What do? The whole dream world manifest, a different world manifest. From where it got manifested? From my mind. So God is, the absolute is saying that this relative world get manifested from my own creative potential, which is known as Prakriti. It can be very loosely compared to the word Maya. You might have heard that word. Please don't think that Maya is magic or anything like that, or delusion or anything like that. Maya, one of the loose translation of Maya is this creative capacity of the God, potential. So this power of Maya, or from the power of Prakriti, this universe get manifested, and at the end of the cycle, the universe will come back to me, and again it get manifested from me at the beginning of the next cycle.
Why loose translation? Isn't that actually Maya, Prakriti?
No, actually there are some technical differences between Maya and Prakriti, which we can talk a little bit later. It's a loose, but for this purpose, Maya equal to Prakriti, because I'm not fully equating. Some technical people will come and linguistic people will come and challenge me. I really don't want to do that. Maya is a different, it is a little bit more than this, that's all.
Okay.
So Maya is more than Prakriti, that's all. But the definition of Prakriti perfectly fits within the Maya. Maya is one of the most complicated word in our literature to explain. We will do that. We will little bit further down. After a 3, 4, 5 concepts is clear, we will explain that.
So Prakriti means Swabhavam or no?
Prakriti is nature. That is another meaning.
Nature means not this trees and all.
Swabhava, that is also Prakriti. See, the Sanskrit is a language with one word can have multiple meaning, right? So these are the different meaning. So you have to be context sensitive. So external Prakriti is external nature, is the nature, the trees, plant and animal. And your Subhava is your internal nature. isn't it?
So Rajesh, we call the para prakriti, right?
Right.
Is the same thing as parashakti? There is a word parashakti in Malayalam, right? Is
Yeah,
that
in
same?
Sanskrit also it is there.
Okay, got it.
Parashakti means the absolute power.
Okay.
Para is absolute. It is transcendent. It is absolute. Para prakriti means you're correct. Here Krishna is referring to para prakriti, not the apara prakriti. Apara
Got it.
prakriti means the nature you see here, because within the nature also there is creative potential. The nature is there. But the absolute prakriti, that is what is being taught here.
Got it.
But the moment you add the word para in Sanskrit, it refers to that transcendental aspect of God. See, in fact, the word transcendental is a Greek word. Always this Greek word has its own problems. But the thing is that if I explain it as para and apara, somehow it won't go and touch people. But the moment you use this transcendent and immanent, you will get it.
Yeah.
So, but know that Greek word has its own. Actually, I tried to explain that in the last class, and that's exactly the one question we had. This monotheistic, polytheistic, pantheistic, all those word, somebody was asking me to clarify once again. So, again, these words are Greek. Germans created these words using the Greek logic. So sometimes what happens is the vocabulary or the technical terms in certain schools may not be good enough to describe the Vedanta or the yoga in its entirety. So for that, we may have to use our own vocabulary, but sometimes we can use it for communication. That's all. But it's a good clarification or a good clarity, Jina. The word parashakti. And then you qualify, right? Adi parashakti.
Yeah, Adi Parashakti, true. Yeah.
So, incidentally, you mentioned it, right? So, anybody of you read Lalita Sahasranama or chanting Lalita Sahasranama?
Yes.
Do you chant with the meaning, right? So all these are parashakti is a word of goddess, right? Then mithya jagadadishtana, there is another word.
Yes.
Mithya jagadadishtana, right? I'm correct, right? That word is there in the Lalita Sahasranama.
Yes.
Yeah.
Jagat means what? The universe. And it is qualified as what? Mithya. Mithya means relative. So relative word. And then the word used is what? Adhishtana. Adhishtana means?
Base.
Yeah, that is the base or sustainer. Exactly the same thing.
Yeah.
So this is what the stotram is talking. People think it as just as a prayer, bhakti prayer. No, it's deep Vedanta. There is words, right? Both Vishnu Sahasranama and Lalita Sahasranama has all these brilliant words, names. Dhyana Thyatru Dheya Rupa. Have you heard of that name in Lalita Sahasranama?
Yeah.
What is the See, typically when you meditate, there is a meditator, there is a meditated, and then there is a process called meditation.
Yeah.
And when you transcend beyond everything, what is that state? Dhyana Thyatru Dheya Rupa. You are the meditator, you are the meditation, you are the meditated also. That is goddess.
You
See,
should do a class on Lalita Sahasranam, Mr. Rajesh.
yeah, it's both are same. Like you have to interpret that, means somebody knows the Vedanta has to explain this.
Yeah, I think it would be nice.
We once started Vishnu Sahasranama, we couldn't continue that. We'll do that once. It's 1,000, if you study that 1,000 names, you know the history, right? When Shankaracharya went to his teacher, and after his studies, Shankara wanted to start writing commentaries of this literature. So his teacher, Govindapada, he wanted him to start with a good, means first test. He said, you go and write the commentary of Vishnu Sahasranama. So it is believed, I don't know whether it is true or not, these stories are always exaggerated. So I cannot say confidently that these are true stories, but the legend says at the age of 9, he wrote the commentary of this Vishnu Sahasranama. And if you read that commentary, it's so brilliant. So this Dhyana, Thyatru, Prayer, all that verses are brilliantly explained. So Vishnu Sahasranama or Lalita Sahasranama, you need to study with this frame of mind. It's mind-blowing, amazing. And with that, if you chant it, contemplating upon the meaning, it is amazing. It is amazing. It's out of the world.
And we should really go for it, Rajesh. I think you are the best person for us here.
And while we talked about this, right? Okay, no, let's not take that diversion, because people were asking different types of samadhi, because now this yoga day is coming. So many people are, please don't carried away by these wrong or half-baked teachings. The samadhi can be considered as 2 types of samadhi. But before that, you need to understand what is samadhi. So we talked about this earlier. Okay, let's take 10 minutes and explain, because I'm just giving you this explanation because when you go and listen to these talks next week, just please don't get carried away or confused, because several people are talking. So we just need to have clarity, our own clarity. The word samadhi, because the word yoga, because we are going to celebrate the International Day of Yoga, and the word yoga is so important. If you really look at the Bhagavad Gita, one word that is repeats after every word, every other verse is yoga. You know that, right? Yoga, 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 yoga. Anything you say, Krishna comes back to yoga. So that is how it is. So there is a lot of doubt. Means I'm just going to explain the question. So you hear a lot of yoga. You hear the yoga of the Gita is different from the yoga of Yoga Sutra. And some people were saying Kundalini yoga is different from Hatha yoga. Hatha yoga is different from Bhakti yoga. Bhakti yoga is different from Jnana yoga. What is the common ground? I thought I explained that in this session, but still that question came in. But so I'm just going to explain. Are you all clear with that? Means what is the yoga? Then I don't have to explain that. I can skip that and talk to the person one-on-one.
So you explained there are 2 meanings. One is to join, and the other is a path towards samadhi, or
correct.
Yeah.
Correct. There is a common ground. The common ground of yoga. The word yoga came from a root called yuj. Yuj has 2 meanings, and the first and foremost meaning is union. What is that union we are talking? Since we studied this chapter a lot, what is that union we are talking?
Union with absolute.
I want to shift my identity from a limited person, from a person who is conditioned by this time and space, to that absolute reality, which is the essence of the universe. That is the union you are talking. Yuj yojane, that is the definition. But to make that happen, only a few people can do that. We heard that in the 7th chapter. So one definition of yoga is any practices, any effort, or anything you do that helps you to understand yourself properly is yoga. And there is only one yoga which fits into this definition. That is Jnana Yoga. Correct? Without knowledge, if your problem is ignorance, the solution is knowledge. Point number 2, then what about all the other yoga? For you to gain that knowledge, the eligibility is there. And what is that eligibility? A stable, pure mind. That is the second definition of yoga. So the whole spirituality is a two-step process. The first step of yoga is going to give me this pure, stable mind. And the second step of yoga is going to give me that connection with the absolute. So the second step, you can say that there is only one yoga, only Jnana Yoga can take you to the help you to cross the second step. And then what is the first step? Any practice that helps you to gain that state called samadhi, yogaha samadhihi or yogaha nirodha. So that practice which helps you to gain that samadhi means samatha vachala buddhi tada yogam avapsyasi. Do you remember which chapter?
Second chapter.
Exactly. Second chapter. Yatro uparate chittam niruddham yoga sevayat. When the mind reaches the state called niruddham or samadhi, both are same, that state is known as yoga. So any practice, any sadhana that helps you to gain that state of samadhi is called yoga.
So state of samadhi is what?
The state of samadhi is a state where your mind is completely well placed, meaning you have complete control over the mind. Your thoughts are exactly in your control. Remember, if a river is flowing and that flow is completely controlled, that means it can be useful. So if I have control over my mental activities, I'm a master. If I don't have control over my mental activities, I'm a sensualist. So the yoga is going to help me to gain control over my mental activities. The word niruddha or nirodha, it means, people say that cessation, which is wrong. It means I'm eliminating certain possibilities and I'm pursuing certain possibilities. See, this mind is probably the greatest tool given to me to live in this world, right? So how can I make you eliminate certain possibilities that is happening to this mind? This classic example given in the literature is like building a dam. When you build a dam, what happened? The water which would have been wasted otherwise, the water which would have been destroying the shore otherwise, is controlled and contained in a dam so that I can use it for my purpose. So the infinite thought potential I have, the great mind I have, is trained in such a way that it can be used for pursuing higher goals of life. So any sadhana which helps me to gain the state of mind is known as yoga. So if I use my day-to-day karma to gain mental purity and control, it is broadly called as karma yoga. If I use the body postures to gain the control over the body and the mind, means first body and eventually to the mind, it becomes hatha yoga. And on a larger scale, if you take everything, because in Bhagavad Gita, you study only karma yoga and upasana yoga and jnana yoga. So on a broader basis, you can say that every other yoga can be put under the bucket of karma yoga. When you do the hatha yoga, you are doing physical work. So that's kind of karma yoga. When you do bhakti yoga, it can be considered as karma yoga. So every other yoga can come under the umbrella of Karma Yoga. So that is where the framework is. On a high level, there is Karma Yoga and there is Jnana Yoga. Even Upasana Yoga can come under the pursuit of Karma Yoga as a subset. But we generally prefer to use Upasana separately because Upasana is Andaranga Sadhana, your mental karmas. Whereas the external karmas needs to be differentiated. That's all the difference is. But everything can be bucketed under Karma Yoga. So your Kundalini Yoga, your Hatha Yoga, your Bhakti Yoga, your Nada Yoga, your Laya Yoga, everything comes into a common framework. It's very important to understand this. And Samadhi means it is not self-realization. A lot of people think that it is self-realization. Self-realization is different from Samadhi. And the Samadhi itself can be categorized into two Samadhis. One is called Samprajnada Samadhi, and the other one is called what you call the Asamprajnada Samadhi. This is the yoga language. When it comes to the Vedanta, it is known as Savikalpa Samadhi and Nirvikalpa Samadhi. Let me just give you a very high-level overview of that. What is this Savikalpa Samadhi or Samprajnada Samadhi means? You can get into a stable, controlled mental state. You all can do, right? When?
Sleeping.
When sleeping means you're not conscious. When you're meditating.
When you meditate.
Correct.
Right? So that is why Patanjali goes to this level. So see, the Savikalpa Samadhi or the Samprajnada Samadhi means I can gain a pure, stable mental state, but I need a tool for that. My mind needs to be absorbed in something else. It could be as simple as a movie. When you watch a movie, why do you feel happy? From where that happiness came from? Is that from the movie? No. That movie absorbs your mind. And when my mind is absorbed in that, mind becomes quiet. And naturally, I feel happy. It could be a meditation. So Patanjali's scheme, he says that there are 4 stages in this meditation. The first stage is called Savitarka. Second one is called Savichara, then called Sa-Ananda, and then called Sa-Asmita. 4 types of meditation. So the first meditation means the meditated object would be a physical object. So you may meditate on the physical form of Lord Shiva, or you may meditate on the physical form of a Shivalinga, or you meditate on a physical form of nature, or you may try to focus on your breathing, or you may focus on your sensations in the body, or you may listen to a mantra. So everything is physical. Your focus is on a physical object. And this is the preliminary stage of meditation. And this stage is what is being practiced by 90% of the practitioners. So this is called Savitarka meditation or Samadhi. From there, how do you advance? Your focus won't be on a physical object. The focus will be on a subtle object. For example, love or another value, something subtle. So this is called Sa-Vichara. It won't be a physical form, but it would be a feeling or a thought. Going further, you don't need an external object or a physical object. You don't need to think about a value or a subtle object. You are able to quieten the mind. When you quieten the mind without any tool, at least in the seat of meditation, you feel that peace and happiness. That is going to be my focus, object of meditation. Again, you need an object, but it is the Ananda arising from the meditation. You're not even thinking about anything else. very few practitioners are there. Even one step further. Once you gain to that stage, you can go even down. And that stage is called sa-asmita. You don't need anything. You are just focusing on who you are. You're trying to look yourself within you. The ego, not the Atman. You're trying to look for the Atman. You don't need even any Ananda, anything. And this is known as sa-asmita. And from here, you go to the asamprajnata samadhi. You don't need any external tool or anything. At your will, your mind will be completely under control. And that will be a 24/7. And once you have it, the knowledge will work and that will take you to moksha. Sorry to go so much technical, but this is the detailed explanation of the different stages of meditation.
So isn't that the same as Nididhyasana then, Rajesh?
The last one is Nididhyasana. Yeah, Nididhyasana comes there. The last part. Once you have that samadhi, you wanted to take out the viparita bhavana, and that is Nididhyasana.
So that's the asamprajnata samadhi.
Asamprajnata samadhi. Yeah. So
I wish we can know ourselves where we stand, in which level we are at every stage.
100% savitarka and maximum sa vichara, including myself.
No. So as
Just
we
telling that, I'm just honestly telling, this is where we all stand. We cannot go beyond that meditation yet. Otherwise, we should be great meditators and practitioners. But with practice, you can go.
Yeah. When we are practicing, when we know where we are going or to which level we are moving, that would be nice.
Yeah, that's why the Yoga Sutra means, I wish we can start Yoga Sutra sometimes, but Yoga Sutra gives all these details. What I'm saying is that it's such a detailed analysis of the human mind. Look at the way it is being analyzed.
Right.
We are actually doing the art of contemplation meditation, and the fifth one is actually the vichara. It's on kindness.
Exactly. But I haven't seen any meditation book which goes beyond that.
Yeah, true. Most of them are the first two.
But you can see this in detail in the Patanjali Yoga Sutra and in the commentary of Vyasa. So isn't it a shame when the yoga teachers, they have no clue about, even some people put patent and say that this is my meditation technique. They haven't even know how much meditation steps are there, how much it exists. It's a shame. Just, we all need to be proud of this great inherited asset given to the humanity by these great sages. Okay, so any other questions? I'll talk to the person who asked the question. You all are clear with that question, right? Anybody needs an answer? Monotheism, polytheism, pantheism, any doubt on that?
No, you clarified that.
Okay. Okay. Then we can stop here. Please join on Saturday, US time, 10 to 1, right, Gina? Clarified it. We clarified.
9 to 12 or 10 to 1?
10 to 1, right?
10 to 1, actually. 10 to 1.
Okay. So that's a third one, right? We'll miss the first two because that's
totally, that is different time zones. So can you imagine, like it's very, we can touch this on a very high level, each topic. It cannot be like this. We cannot go to this level in any of the general public talk.
So when is your talk on Karma Yoga?
It's at 11 o'clock, I believe, 11:15. I have 15 minutes to cover the entire Karma Yoga. I can just touch it. That's it.
So that's the third one, the third 11 o'clock our time.
Yeah. I believe it is Swami Swarupananda starts. He's going to do Bhakti Yoga.
Okay.
Then I think it's good, actually. Good program with amazing set of Dr. Nagendra. Please listen. He knows these things in detail. Like only a few yoga teachers who can go to deep level, and Dr. Nagendra is one of such rare teachers who can talk about the yoga as understood by Patanjali, because otherwise it's all custom yoga people make. So he's certainly one of the best teachers I've ever seen. His knowledge level is amazing. So there are such good teachers. A few good teachers are coming. Swami Chidanandapuri, probably his knowledge on all these things and Jnana Yoga is amazing. I really want to bring him in one of the focused session and have a discussion on this different types of yoga and everything. Probably I have heard the best lecture on Karma Yoga from him. He did that so beautifully. But he's going to talk about Jnana Yoga. And Rajesh Menon, I think you mentioned about this particular Swamiji to me, and he was referred by Swami Sarupriyanandaji. He is Swami Tattwamayananda from California.
Yeah.
So he is going to talk about Raja Yoga. Raja Yoga means it is the Patanjali scheme of yoga. So he's going to do that. He is from the lineage of Vivekananda, who introduced the Raja Yoga first in the United States. So we were very particular to have somebody from that order. And please listen Swami Swarupanandaji also. He is a wonderful teacher. He is the global head of Chinmaya Mission. And please attend Gina's meditation and Avani's yoga.
I hope all the sessions are being recorded. I mean, at least we can watch it later on.
Yep.
Because it's it's bad that we missed all the other ones, because they're also very good. Yeah,
absolutely. So, and the author of this Janaka and Ashtavakra, he is also talking, Ashraf Ji. I was amazed by his knowledge on this Jnana Yoga. I was talking to him, how did you learn all these things? It was very inspiring how he came to this wonderful teaching, and Ashtavakra Gita is what inspired him. So it's very interesting to listen to him. Any other questions?
Explain in a very simple language about enlightenment. That's
yeah.
I don't think it can go even simpler than that.
It cannot go anything simpler than that. And the current book he is writing also is amazing. He told me about the story. Somebody who is afraid of life, who is struggling, and then how this teaching helps him to bounce back. That is the theme. Mind you, he was never introduced to this teaching until he was an adult. That's what he was telling me. So he studied it, and he thought it needs to be brought out in the form of a book. I'll invite him. He knows me very well. So he already agreed me to come and talk about that, the theme of that book. It is very interesting.
What's his name again?
His name is Ashraf. I forgot the last name.
Karayat.
Ashraf Karayat. Yeah. Excellent book. It's a story. It means his goal was to give a primer to Ashtavakra Gita, help people to inspire people to read Ashtavakra Gita. He was telling me that was his goal, for which he succeeded. Those who read that book, you might have heard here, like this dream, the power of the dream is a lot of explained in that book. Janaka had a dream like he was a beggar, etc. So it's there in the Ramayana. So, but brilliantly brought out into in a simple language. Excellent. So Bhuanaji, if you're there, could you chant? She seems to be on mute. I know.
Yeah.
If you.
Om Purnamadah Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnamevavashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Harihi Om. Shri Guru Pyo Namaha. Harihi Om.
Just one tip. Those who try to understand the meaning of this mantra, Purnamida Purnamidam, think about the transcendent and imminent. With that framework, if you try to read the meaning of this mantra, it will be clear. Since it is context, actually, that is what happened. So just mention. We will talk about the meaning in one of the Vedanta class. Okay, so we'll have the Bodha class this week, but Sunday we won't have Bhagavad Gita class. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Rajesh.